The air on the 80th floor is different. It's thinner, tasting of filtered oxygen and the faint, ozonic hum of immense servers one floor below. Nia Sharma pushes her custodial cart across the Italian marble, its rubber wheels the only sound in the cathedral-like hallway. The silence here is a measure of power, a commodity so expensive that only a handful of people on the planet could afford to command it. The cart, with its neatly arranged bottles of ammonia-free glass cleaner, microfiber cloths, and stainless steel polish, feels like a blasphemy in this sacred space. Before her, the twin glass doors of the Olympian boardroom rise to the ceiling. Inside, a single strip of light illuminates a rosewood table so long and polished it looks like a frozen lake at twilight. This is the heart of Vance Innovations, the room where futures are bought, sold, and coded into existence. Nia's job is to erase any trace of the humans who make those decisions. A stray fingerprint on the glass, a smudge on the chrome legs of a chair, the ghost of a coffee ring on the perfect table. She is the priestess of corporate invisibility, tasked with maintaining the illusion that genius needs no maintenance. She reaches for the cool, heavy handle of the door, her knuckles brushing against the etched logo of the company, a stylized V that looks like a falcon in flight. You need executive clearance to enter this room. The voice is smooth, accustomed to being obeyed without inflection. It comes from behind her. Nia doesn't startle. In her line of work, you learn to sense presence without sound. She turns slowly. Julian Vance stands there, looking not at her, but at the name badge clipped to her gray uniform. NIAS Facilities. He is young, dressed in a suit so exquisitely tailored it seems less like clothing and more like a second skin. He has the kind of restless energy that comes from inheriting a kingdom you're not yet sure how to rule. His father, the legendary Marcus Vance, had a stillness about him, a gravitational pull. Julian has only velocity. He gestures vaguely at the door, an impatient flick of the wrist. There are sensitive documents on the table. We have a specialized team that handles pre-meeting sanitation for Olympian-level conferences. Sanitation. The word choice is deliberate, clinical. It's meant to create distance, to categorize her work as something akin to waste disposal. He isn't trying to be cruel. Cruelty requires acknowledging the other person's humanity. This is something far more chilling. The casual, unthinking enforcement of a hierarchy so ingrained he doesn't even recognize it as a choice. He is simply stating a fact, as if explaining that water is wet or that janitors do not belong in boardrooms. Nia's eyes meet his for a fraction of a second. She has her father's eyes, she thinks. Marcus Vance had a way of looking at people, even the cleaning staff, as if they were holding a piece of a puzzle he needed to solve. Julian's gaze slides right off her, seeking the next item on his mental checklist. She feels the familiar heat rise in her chest, a slow burn she has learned to bank like coal. The indignity is a physical thing, a pressure behind the eyes. To be rendered invisible is one thing. She has learned to use that as a shield. To be addressed as a function, a walking, breathing policy violation is another. For a moment, every sharp, cutting reply she has ever swallowed crowds into her throat. The years of study, the degrees earned, the life she lived before this uniform, it all screams for air. Would you endure this? To have your entire existence reduced to a name badge and a set of prohibited actions? She takes a quiet breath, letting the anger recede, leaving behind only a cold, hard clarity. She looks at the polished floor, then back at the anxious young CEO who holds the keys to this glass and steel kingdom. Her grip on the cart's handle is steady. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't have to. Then I suggest you tell your international partners, she says, her voice even and precise, to clean up their own meeting. The words are not an attack. They are a statement of logic, delivered with the calm authority of someone who understands cause and effect. If she cannot enter, the room will remain as it is. It's a simple, undeniable truth. The statement lands in the silent hallway with the force of a thrown stone. Julian blinks. The response is not on his flowchart of expected interactions. Janitors were supposed to be apologetic, deferential, or silent. They were not supposed to present him with flawless, sterile logic that exposed the flaw in his own command. He actually seems to process her words, his mind recalibrating. For the first time, he truly looks at her, at the intelligence in her eyes, the utter lack of fear in her posture. He sees a person, not just a uniform, and the sight of it is so unexpected that it leaves him momentarily speechless. A flicker of his father's curiosity appears in his expression, quickly suppressed by the impatience of a man with too much to prove. Without another word, Nia turns her cart around. The soft whir of its wheels is the only sound as she moves back down the long hallway, leaving Julian Vance standing alone before the doors to his empire. A new and unsettling variable now entered into his day's equation. The room behind him remains uncleaned. Nia's world is a map of surfaces. She knows the precise chemical composition required to make the lobby's granite floors gleam without becoming a slip hazard. She knows which board members leave sugary coffee rings and which ones leave oily fingerprints on the glass walls. Her expertise is deep, meticulous, and utterly invisible to the people who walk over her work every day. They see the result, a flawless, sterile environment, but never the intelligence that creates it. Her shift begins before sunrise, in the quiet gray light of the city waking up. The staff locker room in the sub-basement is a world away from the sky-high executive suites. It smells of industrial soap and damp concrete. Here, before she puts on the uniform that renders her invisible, Nia performs her daily ritual. She opens her locker, which contains only a spare set of clothes and a small oilskin pouch. From it, she pulls a single sheet of cream-colored paper, folded into a neat square. It is her curriculum vitae from another life. The paper is soft from a decade of handling, the creases deep as worry lines. Nia Sharma, Juris Doctor, Cornell Law School. Below that, thesis, the doctrine of unconscionability in Sino-American intellectual property agreements. She runs her thumb over the embossed lettering of the university crest. It's not a reminder of failure, but a touchstone for a part of herself she refuses to let the world erase completely. She folds it carefully and places it back in the pouch, a secret she carries into the day. Later, on the executive floor, the misjudgment she endures is no longer passive, but sharp and pointed. As the final preparations are made for the big meeting, Nia is tasked with a final sweep of the hallway outside the Olympian boardroom. A young, ambitious analyst named Chloe is arranging documents on a credenza. Nia's cart is nearby. As Nia works, she notices one of the binders has slid perilously close to the edge. She reaches out instinctively to steady it. Chloe spins around, her eyes wide with alarm. "Those are confidential," she snaps, her voice a whip crack in the quiet hall. "Your work is on the floor, not the tables." The accusation hangs in the air that Nia is not just a cleaner but a potential threat, a curiosity that must be contained. Nia retracts her hand, her face a calm, unreadable mask. She gives a slight, single nod and pushes her cart away, the squeak of a wheel echoing her retreat. She can feel Chloe's suspicious gaze on her back. A few feet away, David, the older security guard with kind eyes, watches the entire exchange. He says nothing, but his brief look of sympathy is a small, human island in an ocean of corporate indifference. It is then, as she rounds the corner, that Nia glances back and sees the cover of the binder Chloe was so protective of. It's printed in 2 languages, English, and below it, in bold characters, Mandarin Chinese. The meeting begins. The heavy glass doors of the Olympian boardroom swing shut, but do not latch perfectly, leaving a sliver of a gap. To the executives inside, the world outside has ceased to exist. They are in the bubble, the rarefied atmosphere where billion-dollar decisions are made. For Nia, the world outside is her workspace. She is tasked with polishing the chrome fixtures that line the hall, a job that is both endless and mindless, allowing her senses to sharpen on the sounds leaking from the room. She hears the murmur of introductions, the polite, stilted dance of corporate diplomacy. Then, the voices sharpen as the negotiations begin. The hum of her electric buffer is a steady, low drone, the perfect camouflage for listening. She works her way methodically down the hall, her movements practiced and efficient. Then, she hears the voice of the translator. He sounds professional, his English unaccented, his Mandarin fluid. He is translating a statement from the CEO of the Beijing delegation regarding a section on shared technology. The Mandarin phrase he is translating is clear to Nia, Jishu Soyaoquan Juanrang. It means, unequivocally, transfer of technology ownership. It is a phrase freighted with immense legal weight, the kind of term that forms the bedrock of an acquisition, not a partnership. The translator's voice, smooth as silk, renders it into English, and they confirm their commitment to a robust profit-sharing model based on the core technology. Nia's buffer stops. The sudden silence in the hallway is absolute. She feels a jolt, a current of pure adrenaline that makes the hair on her arms stand up. It's not a mistake. It's not a subtle misinterpretation. It is a complete, categorical inversion of meaning. It is the difference between sharing a meal and handing over the keys to your house. Inside the room, she hears Julian Vance's voice, relieved and confident. "Excellent. We are in full agreement on that point. Please, let's move to the signing." Nia stands frozen in the hallway. This is the precipice. She can turn her buffer back on, finish polishing the chrome, and let the company fall into the abyss. It is not her company. She is just the help, a ghost in the machine. But the knowledge is now a physical weight inside her. She knows what that clause means, not just in theory, but in the brutal practice of international law she once studied. To stay silent now is not a passive act. It is a choice, and in that moment, buffing machine silent at her feet, she knows she cannot simply walk away. Act Roman 2 opens with a choice. Nia has to try. She can't storm into the boardroom. They would call security before she uttered a single word. She needs a conduit, a way to pass the message to someone on the inside who might listen. Her only option is Chloe. She waits for the first short break when people step out for coffee. As she predicted, Chloe emerges, looking self-important as she taps a message into her phone. Nia intercepts her near the coffee station, keeping her voice low and calm, her posture non-threatening. "Excuse me," she says, holding a cleaning cloth as a prop, a justification for her presence. A moment. Chloe looks up, her irritation barely masked. "I'm very busy." The Mandarin term, Nia presses on gently, the one for technology, soyao quan. She says the word perfectly, the tone's exact. It doesn't mean sharing. It means ownership, complete ownership. Chloe stares at her. For a moment, the sheer unexpectedness of the janitor speaking flawless, technical Mandarin short-circuits her brain. But the institutional hierarchy reasserts itself in a split second. Who is she going to believe? A highly paid, certified translator or the woman who cleans the toilets? The absurdity of the situation is, to her, proof that Nia must be wrong or crazy. "I have no idea what you're talking about," Chloe says, her voice dripping with condescension. "We have one of the best interpreters in the business in there. Please stick to your duties." She turns and walks away, dismissing Nia as if she were a flickering fluorescent light, a minor, ignorable annoyance. But the exchange has not gone entirely unnoticed. David, the security guard, is standing at his post down the hall. He's too far away to hear the words, but he sees Nia's earnest expression and Chloe's contemptuous dismissal. He sees Nia stand there for a long moment after Chloe leaves, a look of profound frustration on her face. He files the image away. David is a man who has learned that in a place like this, the most important things are often what happens in the margins. If that happened to you, what would you do? That evening, long after the executives have gone home, the building settles into a quiet, humming stillness. This is Nia's time. The skyscraper is her silent kingdom. As she works her way through the deserted executive floor, she passes the Olympian boardroom. The lights are off, but the city lights from the floor to ceiling windows cast long shadows across the room. Julian Vance is still there. He is standing alone in the dark, not at the head of the great rosewood table but to the side, looking up at a portrait on the wall. It's the official portrait of his father, Marcus Vance. The painting is immense, capturing a man who was a force of nature, confident, visionary, with eyes that seem to look right through you. From the shadows of the hallway, Nia watches Julian. He isn't the arrogant CEO from this morning. He is just a son, standing before the larger-than-life image of his father, the weight of a legacy pressing down on him. He runs a hand through his hair, a gesture of pure exhaustion and anxiety. He thinks he's secured his father's company. He has no idea he just gave it away. In that quiet moment, Nia feels an unexpected and complicated pang of empathy. Her fight isn't with this man, not really. It's with the system of deliberate blindness he represents and is also trapped within. He is as much a product of his world as she is of hers. The stakes suddenly feel more personal. This isn't just about a legal clause or a faceless corporation anymore. It's about a son, a father, and a legacy on the verge of being shattered by what he is unable to see. She feels a moral obligation not just to the truth, but to the memory of the man in the portrait, a man who, she'd heard, always took the time to learn the names of his cleaning staff. Her resolve hardened. Nia knows she needs proof. A vague warning is not enough. Later, during her rounds in the administrative wing, she finds her chance. An intern is clearing out the temporary office used by the translation team. A stack of papers is sitting atop a recycling bin destined for the industrial shredder. On the very top is a draft schedule of the day's negotiations. Stapled to it is a single, heavily annotated page from the contract draft, a page the shredder missed. She takes it. In the stark, fluorescent light of a deserted staff break room, she spreads the paper out on a small table. It's worse than she thought. The page contains the critical clause. The English version is dense with legalese, using the term beneficiary profit sharing. It's designed to be reassuring. The Mandarin version runs parallel to it. The term at its heart is soyaoquan, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. But it's followed by a subclause that is even more damning. It references a specific article in Chinese corporate law that pertains to the transfer of intangible assets, patents, copyrights, trademarks. It's a masterfully constructed legal trap. It leverages the subtle differences between Western contract law, which focuses on the explicit text, and Chinese business norms, which can place immense weight on specific, culturally coded terminology. The clause is designed to be signed by Americans who would never grasp the full implication of that single legal reference. The cost, if ignored, is catastrophic. Within 90 days, a quiet filing in a Beijing courthouse would complete the legal transfer of Vance Innovations' entire patent portfolio. They would be a hollow shell. Nia now understands. This wasn't an error, it was an execution. And she is holding the only evidence of the weapon. She has a choice: comply with her role, stay silent, and let the company die, saving herself from risk. Or resist, speak up, and risk everything for a company that sees her as nothing more than the woman who mops the floors. The ink is barely dry on the contract when the first tremors are felt. An automated alert from a patent monitoring service flags an unusual preliminary filing in Beijing. It's dismissed by the legal team as a clerical error. Then, a senior engineer in the R&D department reports that his access to a core server has been blocked, with the redirect routed through an IP address belonging to their new partner. Chaos begins to ripple through the executive floor. Julian, enraged and confused, demands answers. His legal team is in a tailspin, trying to decipher a situation that makes no contractual sense from their perspective. The highly paid translator is suddenly incommunicado, his phone disconnected, his email bouncing back. He has vanished. Julian's fear curdles into paranoia. He needs a scapegoat. During a frantic meeting, a junior VP, a man known for his political maneuvering, sees Nia cleaning in the hallway. What is she still doing up here? He barks, "We have a security situation. All non-essential staff need to be restricted." He sees Nia not as a person but as a variable, an unknown, and in a crisis, all unknowns are threats. The order is given. The VP of Operations, a stern man with a clipboard and no time for nuance, intercepts Nia by the elevators. "There's been a change in protocol," he says, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Due to the current security review, your duties are restricted to floors 1 through 40. You are not to come to the executive levels until further notice." It's a public, humiliating demotion. She is being walled off, exiled from the center of power, just as the crisis she tried to avert is exploding. As the elevator doors slide shut, she sees the frantic, panicked faces of the executives rushing past, utterly oblivious that the one person who holds the key to their salvation is descending to the lower floors in a janitor's uniform. This is the system pushing back, isolating the truth teller. She stands alone in the descending elevator car, a profound sense of failure washing over her. She had the truth, but they wouldn't let her speak it. She makes a quiet vow, They may have silenced her, but she will not let them be the only ones who get to tell this story. Act Roman 3 begins in the smoldering wreckage of Julian Vance's confidence. 3 days of chaos have passed. The company's stock is plummeting. The board is calling for an emergency meeting. The legal team is admitting defeat. They are trapped. The contract is ironclad, and the Beijing firm is now openly asserting its ownership of Vance's core technology. The emergency board meeting is a scene of quiet despair. They are gathered around the rosewood table, the titans of industry reduced to grim-faced men staring at their imminent demise. The Beijing CEO is on the main screen, his expression a mask of polite, feigned sympathy. "The contract is quite clear," he says smoothly. "We are simply acting on the terms you agreed to." At this moment, down on the 35th floor, David the security guard watches the stock ticker on his monitor bleed red. He thinks of the exchange he witnessed, Nia's calm certainty, Chloe's arrogant dismissal. He's seen enough in his 20 years here to know that truth rarely wears a suit. He makes a decision. He picks up his internal phone and calls Julian Vance's executive assistant. He keeps it simple. "There was a woman from facilities," he says. "She tried to warn the analyst about the translation. I saw it. You people are fighting a fire, and the one person who knows where the extinguisher is, you've locked her in the basement. Maybe you should talk to her." The message is relayed to Julian. It's a Hail Mary, an absurdity, but he is a drowning man, and this is a hand reaching out of the depths. "Find her," he commands, his voice raspy with desperation. "Get her up here. Now." Nia is in the cafeteria on a lower floor, eating her lunch in silence when her supervisor approaches, his face a mixture of awe and confusion. "The CEO," he stammers. "He wants to see you. In the Olympian boardroom." Nia feels no triumph, only a grave sense of purpose. She doesn't change out of her uniform. She simply rises, walks to her locker, and retrieves the single wrinkled page of the contract draft. As she walks to the executive elevator, a new set of doors opening for her, she is not thinking about revenge. She is thinking about the thesis she wrote 10 years ago and how, in the end, knowledge is the only key that fits every lock. This is where everything could flip. She steps into the elevator, ascending toward the proving ground. The elevator doors open onto the silent, tense 80th floor. Nia walks the long marble hall, her practical, rubber-soled shoes making no sound. She enters the Olympian boardroom. Every eye is on her. The air is thick with the metallic tang of fear. The assembled board members, men in $1,000 suits, stare at her uniform, at the woman who cleans their offices, as if she is an apparition. She ignores them all. She walks past a stunned Julian Vance. Her focus is on the giant screen at the end of the table, on the face of the Beijing CEO, Mr. Chen. Nia lays the wrinkled contract page on the polished table. Then, she looks directly into the camera. She begins to speak. "Wo Xiang Taolan Guanyu Jishi Chengquan de Tio Quan," she begins, her Mandarin perfect, formal, and lethally precise. "I would like to discuss the clause regarding intellectual property." On the screen, Mr. Chen's polite smile freezes. His eyes widen almost imperceptibly. This is not the broken, pidgin Mandarin of a desperate American legal team. This is the language of an equal. Nia continues, calmly dissecting the clause. She explains the legal precedent set by a 2018 case in the Shanghai Intellectual Property Court. She quotes from the specific article of Chinese corporate law referenced in the sub-clause. She deconstructs the trap, piece by piece, not with anger but with the irrefutable clarity of a legal scholar. Then, she turns her attention to the silent men at the table. "You didn't sign a partnership," she says, her voice steady in the silent room. "You signed a confession of incompetence. The term soyaoquan does not mean profit sharing. It means ownership. You didn't agree to share your technology. You gave it away." The silence that follows is profound. It's the sound of a world being turned upside down. Finally, an old silver-haired board member, a man who had served with Julian's father for 40 years, leans forward. "My God," he whispers. How could you possibly know this?" Nia finally looks at Julian, her gaze holding his. "I wrote my thesis on Sino-American intellectual property law," she says, her voice quiet but echoing in the tomb-like room. "Before my resume became irrelevant. Did you feel that shift? It was the sound of a janitor becoming the most powerful person in the room. Julian Vance is pale, his face a mask of shock and dawning, gut-wrenching understanding. He is staring at the woman he barred from this floor, the woman who just saved his father's legacy from his own blindness. The consequences are about to land. The reversal is immediate and absolute. On the screen, Mr. Chen's composure has shattered. Confronted with his own strategy explained by an unforeseen expert, his position is legally untenable. He quickly suggests a re-evaluation of terms, a code for a full retreat. The hostile takeover is dead. In the aftermath, the boardroom is a strange mix of relief and profound embarrassment. The company is saved, but the myth of its own omniscience is shattered. Julian Vance, humbled in a way he has never been in his life, approaches Nia after the board members have filed out, leaving them alone in the vast room. He starts, but the words fail him. Thank you, name your price, a new role, VP of International Strategy, Chief Counsel, a blank check. Whatever you want, it's yours. This is the moment of restitution, the offer of reward. But Nia is not interested in climbing the ladder that was, until an hour ago, invisible to her. She is interested in rebuilding it. She looks at the exhausted young CEO not with triumph, but with a clear, steady purpose. I don't want a desk, Julian, she says, using his first name for the first time. A promotion won't fix the problem. I was sitting right outside your door with the answer and you couldn't see me. The system you run is designed not to see me. I don't want a job. I want a promise. I want a policy that ensures you never render someone like me invisible again. Her request is not for vengeance, but for vision. It is the purest form of soft justice, not punishment for the past, but a structural guarantee for the future. What does real justice look like here? To Nia, it looks like a rewritten rulebook. The stakeholders, Julian, the board, the very culture of the company, are now forced to weigh her proposal, an idea far more radical and transformative than any simple promotion. Act Roman 4 begins not with a celebration, but with work. Julian, true to his word and shaken to his core, puts the full weight of his office behind Nia's vision. It's not enough to make a vague promise. Nia insists on specifics. Weeks later, a company-wide memo announces the launch of the Vance Potential Protocol. It's not a fluffy HR initiative, it's a rigid operational change. First, a new confidential database is created, managed by a neutral third-party firm. Every single employee, from the janitorial staff to the cafeteria workers to the security guards, is invited to submit their second resume. A full accounting of their degrees, certifications, language fluencies, patents held, and specialized skills. Second, the company's hiring policy is rewritten. The new Rule 4.1a states that for any new position or consultancy role, hiring managers are mandatorily required to query the potential protocol database before initiating any external search. They must document their internal search and provide a reason if no internal candidate is selected. Third, an oversight committee is formed to audit the protocol's application quarterly. Nia agrees to chair it for the first year. The policy has a name, it has an owner, it has an enforcement mechanism. It is designed to systemically combat the very bias that almost destroyed the company. The change is beginning. There is quiet resistance from some mid-level managers, grumbling about the new red tape. But the directive from the top is absolute. The path has opened. The announcement of the new protocol is met with a stunned silence, then a wave of quiet excitement among the company's support staff. For Nia, the real moment of closure comes not in a public forum but in the quiet solitude of the sub-basement locker room. She opens her locker and takes out the oilskin pouch. She unfolds her old, worn CV. For years, she has looked at this paper with a mix of pride and a deep, aching sadness for a life interrupted. It was a testament to who she was. Now it feels different. It feels like a seed that has finally, against all odds, found soil. She smooths the creases one last time. She is not that person anymore, the promising academic whose career was derailed. Nor is she just the janitor. She is something new, something forged between the two. She carefully places the CV into a clean, new envelope she brought from home. She is not throwing away her past but archiving it with honor. Just then, Chloe, the young analyst, appears at the end of the row of lockers. She looks hesitant, her usual confidence gone. "Miss Sharma," she says, her voice barely a whisper. I just wanted to say, I am so sorry. I should have listened to you." Nia looks at her, seeing not the arrogant girl from the hallway but a young woman who has just learned a hard and valuable lesson. There is no anger left in Nia, only a weary sense of purpose. She offers a small, forgiving nod. "Now," Nia says gently, "the whole company will." It's a moment of micro-closure, a quiet healing that has nothing to do with applause. It's the sound of one person's perspective permanently changing. And for Nia, that is a start. She is reclaiming not just her history, but her power to define her own present. Nia's recognition is not a golden handshake or a laudatory article in the company newsletter. It is quiet, specific, and focused entirely on her competence. She agrees to lead the first onboarding seminar for the new Vance Potential Protocol. The room is filled with the company's managers, the very people who are now required to use the system she designed. Julian Vance introduces her. He doesn't recount the dramatic story of the boardroom showdown. He doesn't frame her as a savior. He frames her as an architect. For years, we have operated under the assumption that talent arrives through the front door with a scheduled interview, he begins, his voice steady. We were wrong. We were sitting on a gold mine of expertise that we were too blind to see. Miss Sharma didn't just point out a flaw in a contract. She pointed out a fundamental flaw in our vision. She taught us how to see again. Your job is not to thank her. Your job is to learn from her and to use the tools she built for us. He steps aside, and the applause that fills the room is not for a hero. It is for a teacher. Nia steps up to the podium, not in a suit but in her simple, professional work attire. She shares no part of her personal story. Instead, she opens a binder and begins to explain with calm precision how the new system works. The recognition is done right. It focuses on her intellect and her contribution, opening a door for everyone who, like her, has more to offer than their job title suggests. The symbolic object, Nia's hidden CV, returns, its meaning utterly transformed. It has evolved from a private emblem of a lost past into a public instrument of future potential. Every new employee at Vance Innovations, whether they are a PhD-level data scientist or a groundskeeper, now receives a welcome packet on their first day. Tucked inside, alongside the standard HR forms and mission statement, is a single, beautifully printed card. It is made of the same cream-colored stock as Nia's old CV. At the top, it is titled, "Your Second Resume." The card contains a simple, inviting prompt. At Vance Innovations, we believe your value is more than your job title. Please use this space or the online portal to tell us about the other skills you have, the languages you speak, the degrees you've earned, the passions you pursue. We want to know all of who you are. At the very bottom of the card, in small, elegant script, is a single quote. The most valuable assets are the ones you don't know you have. Did the object's meaning change for you too? Nia's folded, private paper, once a symbol of what the system had forced her to hide, has become the company's official invitation for everyone else to reveal their own hidden depths. It is a quiet, powerful echo of her journey, now embedded in the very DNA of the company culture, a sign of her readiness for the future. The final scene takes place months later. Nia is walking through the sun-drenched atrium of the main building. She still works for Vance, but her role is now fluid, a consultant at large for operations and efficiency, a position she designed herself. She still prefers her simple, practical uniform. Some things have not changed, but everything else has. She stops by a workbench where a young man from the maintenance crew, someone she used to share silent nods with in the early mornings, is hunched over a tablet. He's excitedly showing her a beta version of an app he designed. Through the potential protocol, the company had discovered his self-taught Python scripting skills. Now, he's on a company-sponsored certification track, and his first project is to build an app that will streamline the very maintenance schedules he used to follow. "Look, Miss Sharma," he says, his face lit with pride. "If we reroute the HVAC diagnostics through this interface, we can cut energy consumption by another 3%. Nia looks at the complex code on his screen and then at his hopeful, intelligent face. She smiles, a genuine, unburdened smile. Her legacy is not a plaque on the wall or a corner office on the 80th floor. It is here in this conversation. It is the tangible, unfolding potential of the people the system was once designed to ignore. The closing image is of the two of them, side by side, pointing at the screen, a quiet collaboration between two experts. The room, the entire company, has changed, not because of one heroic moment, but because one quiet person of integrity rewrote the rules to ensure that everyone could be seen. Is there a better definition of justice than that?